welcome to this session. This is Abhyuday Agarwal from LawSikho. Today, our conversation is going to be how do you leverage online courses in your career for maximum benefit. Okay. And I'm going to share this in light of my experiences. And we're going to go back to 2009, 2010, when I was in NUJS and what was the career gap that I was seeing. Okay. So, and till if anybody is joining in the session, the first thing you do is share with me what you're studying, which year you're in, where you're studying, and what's your area of interest, or what is the area in which you want to build your career. Okay. So there was this senior of mine. So we used to stay in boys hostel at NUJS. I was on like the fifth floor, and I was in second year. This was 2007. Okay. And my senior, who was 3 years older than me. Okay. So we used to talk a lot about, career, or I used to take guidance from him, how his internship experiences were, how people are going about getting a job. So he used to say this, okay, in second year, we hadn't studied any corporate law, right? We had only studied the usual stuff, contracts, torts, all of that. So he said that, there is something, and he was in fourth year then. So he said there is something called takeover code. Okay. And he said that in your college, in our company law class, we only studied Companies Act. And our teacher mentioned that there is something called takeover code. But when I went to a law firm for an internship, the entire work that we did inside the law firm was actually on the takeover code. So he said that, this is how it is different. Like the internship is very different from what you learn in college, because you wouldn't be studying and using the takeover code for real work. But this is what I did in the internship. And then I was like, okay, this was a major insight for me. I could actually relate to what the difference could be between what we'll study in college and the real work in a law firm. And since then, I made it a point that I Googled up the takeover code, saw what the provisions were, and I was very clear that if I know nothing else, I should at least know this if I want to go for a corporate law job. But I also started thinking, how many other areas are there like this, which I'm not thinking about? How many other areas that I have no idea about? This one area, the senior came and told me, so I could find out about it. And later in fourth year, I also did a moot, NLU Delhi moot on takeover code, where we won. Our team had won the moot court competition. But the question was, how many other areas are there which I have no idea about? So this conversation with me, with my senior in my second year, was the turning point for me. Like for a lot of you, what happens is that you want to wait, right? I also wanted to wait till third year to study company law first before I decided to specialize or work more on corporate law. But when I heard this from my senior, I was like, okay, I cannot bank on college studies to get me the kind of knowledge or exposure that I want. Okay, so it was a big turning point for me. And I was thinking that this is just one aspect of company law. Which other aspects are there which I'm missing out on? Now, in my third year, incidentally, when I was trying to moot for in the national, in the team selections for NUJS in my third year, we had a corporate law problem, and that was good for me because I also wanted to develop an interest in the area. So I was like, it's great that I have a moot court to do on this. Then at the end of my third year, I did an internship. Third year or fourth year, I did an internship at AZB in Mumbai, and we were working on big ticket banking and finance deals. Okay, two kinds of deals we were working on. I'll explain the deals broadly. One was foreign loan transactions of high value. These loan transactions, because they are of huge amounts, they are syndicated loans. Okay, so there's a foreign bank which is lending, and because the loan may run into 500 crores, 1000 crores, that kind of amount, 2000 crores, they will get syndicated, meaning multiple banks will lend a portion of the total amount needed in India. Okay, this is one kind. And in a syndicate loan, you will have a lot of documents. So there'll be a loan document, there may be some security documents, there will be a trust deed, because all the lenders will appoint one agent who will act for them, who will take decisions on behalf of the lenders to protect their interest. And those parameters on which the agent, who's called a trustee, will act will be defined in the documentation. Now, for one such loan transaction, there are 6 to 7 documents that work together. Like they are bunched together, but there are 6 to 7 different agreements. There is a regulatory aspect to it. There's a aspect to it under FEMA, under Companies Act, under RBI regulations, all of that. Okay, so now the question is that these documents that are there, they run into hundreds of pages. All the documents combined will probably be 300-400 page long. And in my internships, I was having access to those and I was having to read the documents. But what I realized was that despite having access to the whole document, I wasn't able to properly understand the purpose of having those clauses. So if you tell me to draft a document, I can take a prior template, but I will not know why certain clauses are there and how to tweak them. This is the challenge I was finding out. And I found some of the clauses to be really long. And I didn't understand why they had to be that long because I couldn't understand the clause only. I was like, why couldn't I understand it? And I tried really hard to read. I used to, in my spare time, sit for hours and read. Like I was given the task of proofreading. In proofreading, the number one task for you is to identify that punctuation should be uniform, capitalization should be uniform, there should be definitions clause should have all the definitions written, mentioned in the agreement. If a definition is not mentioned in the agreement but it is written in the definitions clause, that means that that has come from some other document. You have to delete it. If there are other terms which have a technical meaning inside the contract, then you have to go up and define them in the definitions clause. So this was my job to do as an intern. But while I was doing this, I was trying to understand the document, but I was not able to. I couldn't understand the whole piece together. Okay. Then the other kind of deal was something on issuance of certain kinds of debentures, which would then get placed on the uh, debt listing platform of the stock exchange, and then it could be taken up by various kinds of NBFCs. Okay. So I'm not going to explain the transaction structure here, but what I realized was that I wasn't exactly sure why things are working that way, despite having full access to all the documents. And by the way, those loan documents that I'm talking about, they are even standardized now. They are made by something called a loan market association, and all the Indian law firms or any foreign law firm would also work on customizing some of them. But by and large, there's a huge standardization that's been done here in light of the interests of different bankers and borrowers. This has been made uniform. But I couldn't understand each term, and I wished that somebody taught me what they meant and why they meant so, because I tried really hard. For a month I would read those documents, didn't get a hang of it. So I started to read certain books and courses on my own other than the actual documents that I was reading in my internships. What kind of books were those? I read Barbarians at the Gate. This was about a huge leveraged buyout, the world's biggest back then. What is leveraged buyout? Leveraged buyout is when a company is acquiring another company, but the funds that it is generating to acquire another company are being done by are being generated by issuing debt. Okay, by taking loans. Okay, and it was a cross-border buyout. And what was there in this book was the whole business angle and the legal angle. By and large, mostly the business angle. Okay, but once the deal was negotiated, it was pretty interesting how parties agreed to a legal timeline, but then the bankers and the finance teams had to coordinate that whether so much money. This was the world's biggest leverage buyout back then. So the parties had to identify whether this much money is actually available with the banks to transfer. Okay, so people ran into various different kinds of practical issues which were not exactly foreseen at the time of writing the document, and at the last minute the teams would make it move. Then cold steel was a pretty interesting one. I'm going to share the stories as I read them. Okay, cold steel was the acquisition of Ellen Mittal Steel. He had a history of buying out uh, non-functional or financially non-viable plants and turning them around and making them profitable. Okay. Recently also he has bought the SR one, right? He has bought the SR plant and there's the IBC judgment on it. So this is, I think, one of his first investments in India. Okay. Now, the deal with buying a non-functional plant or a non-profitable plant or something which is in insolvency is that you can get a better deal than a fully functional company. Now, this particular deal in cold steel was about acquiring Arcelor Steel, which was the second largest steel manufacturer in the world. Okay, and it was cross-border, so there were multiple law firms involved. There were US law firms, UK, their UK offices were involved, and interestingly, on the European side, there were a lot of practical issues, like if you need an acquisition there, you need the union's approval. So getting approval of the unions was something that the lawyers and the business teams were doing together. There was a competition issue involved, and this was interestingly at a point in time where Europe was thinking of a competition regulation. So the competition law that, in India, main competition law, the act got notified earlier, but the act got passed earlier, but real competition law work started happening around 2010-11. In EU, it started happening around 2004-2005 with their latest competition law being notified. This deal got done just before that, like, a few days before. So there it was a lot of, there were lawyers involved, there were regulators involved, there were public policy people, there were PR people. And when I was reading about it, I could actually visualize the whole picture. Okay, otherwise what happens is, if you're looking at the legal picture, you miss the business picture. But when I could see all the moving parts, I could realize that this is how a deal moves, and this is what the role of a commercial lawyer is. In Liar's Poker was a book of the US bond markets in the 1980s and 1990s. And what I really came to know about was how a securities trading outfit works. Like if you're trading debt on the stock exchange, what it looks like, and also how people make a name for themselves, how they compete. So it was entirely on a lowdown on the financial services industry. Not much to correlate with India, but it was kind of racy, like a thriller. So like you can pick up maybe an Agatha Christie or any other thriller and read it fast. This is how it was. Like I could actually feel the thrill there, although it was non-fiction. Then by chance, this was one of my first few orders from Flipkart, and this book wasn't available in India otherwise. So Flipkart imported it and sent it to me. This is on the rise the of the firm 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. So how did I come to know about this book? I read about 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 in Cold Steel. Their UK office was involved in a part of the deal. So I read about their work. Now we have some of our juniors also working in 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 in New York. But back then, I didn't know anybody who worked in 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 from India. And so this book actually explained how the firm really came into existence and grew to be the world's most profitable firm, and the biggest US law firm which had gone international. Okay. Then Predator's Ball was a book. So I'm sharing my experiences. Okay. I don't know if you all are able to connect with it, or are you enjoying it? Are you enjoying it? Just let me know, because if it's boring you, I will switch topic. Okay, great. So I'll continue and I will take your questions also. Don't worry. Okay. Predator's Ball was a story about Mike Milken. He was you can call him something like an investment banker. Okay. But where I read about him was again in the book on 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. So one book led me to another. The book on 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 mentioned one person's name called Joseph Flom. He was I think he started as an associate or an intern in the firm, and his name was last added to the firm. So the name of the firm is 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 and Flom. Flom was the surname of Joe Flom, who last got added there, and he started with the firm as a junior associate, but he started to take up every kind of work that came their way. And one of the kind of work that came his way was a junk bond. A junk bond is what? A junk bond is a bond which has a very low credit rating. Okay. In fact, it is sold very cheaply. Okay. And so Joe Flom did the legal work for it at Skadden, and Predator's Ball covered Mike Milken. This guy was a financier. He wasn't a lawyer. So he, through his financial wizardry, created a security that allowed you to issue this to the public, okay, without having a lot of credit worthiness. So you could get a 1 rupee bond. Normally what happens, you get a 1 rupee bond at whatever price, say 1 rupee or 1.2 or 0.9, and on that you get interest. Okay, that interest is the interest you earn every year. Like if you invest in a bank on your FD, you will earn, if you invest 100 rupees, you may earn 5 rupees. Okay, like that is the FD interest rate in some of the banks today. Now, if you take a corporate debt, you may get a 9% or 8% or 10% return roughly. So 100 rupees, you get 9 rupees back. In a junk bond, what will happen is if it's a 100 rupee bond, you will not have to pay 100 rupees for it. You will pay like 50 rupees or 60 rupees for it. It will have very little credit rating. Okay. So huge chance you don't get anything in return. And if you get, then it will get sold to the full value. Like you'll get 1 rupee. Okay. Now, how it commercially works, don't worry. But what is the effect of it is that if I am usually what would happen if you have a 100 million company, you can acquire a smaller company than you, because your resources, how will you acquire other companies? You'll acquire them through your own cash. You will maybe borrow some funds from the market. But if you have a 100 million company, you won't acquire a company which is much bigger than yourself, right? Because you won't have the reserves to do that. But what this junk bond enabled you to do is that you could acquire a 100 million company, could acquire a 1 billion company or a 2 billion company. Okay. So that is what led to the rise of 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃 to be a great big law firm, and also uh, Predators, this Mike Milken's firm, okay, called Drexel. It was called Drexel, Burnham, Lambert. Okay. So they were the financiers, and 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 was the legal firm, because at 100, an entrepreneur with 100 million company could do a war, or could do a takeover war. This is applicable only to listed companies. Okay. Could do a takeover war and acquire a 2 billion company. This enabled smaller companies or smaller raiders, they were called corporate raiders. Those raiders could actually acquire bigger businesses, which, if they thought were inefficient, they could really make literally to a speech to the shareholders, and indulge in something called proxy wars and get the shareholders to vote for new management, throw old management out, and buy the shares of the dissenting shareholders, because they were having a lot of money to buy out this. Okay. So smaller raiders were, Carl Icahn was one of them. He still, I think he runs a Twitter account and tweets frequently. So he was one of them. And this is how this side of corporate work picked up in US. And this was covered a lot in the US scenario. And this was in 1980s. And something that was really interesting was that Mike Milken was a very big networker. So that's why the name of the book also, Predators Ball, was an event he organized annually at one of his offices, where basically, if his work is to get leveraged buyouts or junk bond issuances done, and then through that junk bond issuance, they will use that money to buy a big company. So that kind of a guy is a raider or a predator, and the ball is a party. So that party was basically a networking event where the world's biggest raiders could meet with each other and hatch plans, right? So that's what the name of the book was. And this guy used to work from like 4 a.m. in the morning, because there were markets in Japan which were opening there. So he would work from 4 a.m. in the morning till almost midnight, because that's when markets in another country would close. So while he was in US, he used to stay, I think, somewhere in Beverly Hills or something. But the important thing was that he had to time his daily schedule not on US time, but also factor in Japan time and time in other markets like maybe UK and all of that. And it's very similar to how, if you're an Indian lawyer working in a firm with an Australian client or a Singaporean client, you will be starting your day not at 10 but at 8 a.m. Okay. And if you're working with a European client, then you will end your day at midnight or 1 a.m. because they will be working till their 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. Okay. So then the next book that I read about was, are you still enjoying? I'm going to keep asking you this. Okay. And I don't want to go into a monologue or a drawl. So just keep telling me, keep giving me the feedback. Big Short. This was a really, really interesting one. Now you have a great movie built on it also, but back then there wasn't a movie. So Big Short was about the US financial crisis, and it explains in as much detail as possible how the financial crisis happened. So some people say that it was because, and I'll explain it to you. Okay. Some people say that the subprime crisis happened because the loans that were given were subprime, that is given to non-credit worthy individuals, right? But and therefore they were likely to have defaults on them, and therefore the market collapsed. But the real question is not why. The real question is not about, if your loan, suppose in India, if you do this, okay, in India, if a bank gives you a loan to buy a house, Why do banks love giving housing loans? Have you seen the interest on housing loans? Look at the interest on commercial loans. It could be 13 to 18% in India. Okay. And look at the interest on housing loans. It'll be like 7-8%. Banks love giving housing loans. Why? And the difference between your FD interest and your housing loan will be like 2-3%. So it's almost like, if you want to save, you might as well pay a little 2% extra and buy a house. Banks love it because, yeah, exactly. HDFC gives 6.99. So banks love it because if you default, they don't have anything to lose. The house is a mortgage, it's secured, right? But what if the value of the house goes down, right? Then the bank is in a difficulty. If the value of the house goes down from 50 lakhs to 40 lakhs, there's a problem. If you default and the house is worth 40 lakhs, then the bank has lost money. Okay. So something like this happened in the US, that the housing prices went short because individuals who were not credit worthy got loans, and because a lot of non-credit worthy individuals were able to get loans, housing demand shot up, right? So housing prices would go up because everybody is buying a house, so housing prices will go up, right? So that means that housing prices have gone up, but the people who've got the loans may not be able to pay, right? So if there's a default, then it will crash. But this also is keeping two people connected. Who? The housing market and the home buyers. Okay. There was one more trickery involved over and above this. Okay. What was the trickery involved over and above this? The financing industry. Okay. They took these loans, and if a loan is, let's say, 2 crores, okay, they devised a mechanism by which they can take this loan and they can securitize it. Okay. So a part of this explanation that I'm giving you was a part of my trilegal interview. Okay. Might have been one of the reasons why I got selected, because I understood some part of this. Okay. So what they did was they they split up this loan of, let's say, 2 crores into securities of, say, 2000 rupees. And lots of individuals, pension funds, everybody could buy into it. Okay. So that means now that if there's a default, what is going to happen? If there's a default, it is not going to be the bank and it's not going to be the borrower alone, but public which has bought it. And this public wasn't just individuals. There would be individuals, but there would be pension funds which were required to invest in secure instruments. They would get hit. So everybody would get it. So that's how this basically opened a landmine of connected bombs, literally, right? That's how people lost money. Over and above this, they found one more loophole. Okay. Not only did they they gave the subprime loans and securitized it to everybody, they created the riskiest piece of the subprime layer. Okay. They securitized it separately and they called it AAA. Okay. They said that this is gold standard. This is a super high. This is very valuable and it's going to give you good returns. But it was the worst piece of junk that was there. Okay. And they were able to do this because of a flaw in the mathematical formula for identifying the credit worthiness of a loan. Okay. So if they had said as it is, if they had said this is shit and you can buy it at your own risk, this wouldn't have been a problem. Okay. But they actually did not do that because they found this loophole and they said this is a AAA CDO. Okay. That was called a collateralized debt obligation. So it was a security over a security. They punched out the worst of the 2000 rupee securities and said that this is the best rated, but the instrument is different, governed by different rules. Okay. So this is now, if there's going to be a default, it's going to affect everybody involved. And The Big Short is a story of 3 individuals who read the devil in the details. They read the actual original fund issuance documents. And they decided that we are going to bet against the market, that we're very clear this is going to fall. And they made money because the market fell. And they hated the idea still that they made money because the market fell. And they hated the idea that financial institutions are behaving like this. But that's the story. And what it did at all costs still was that it made me interested in reading about corporate law because this was very, very exciting. However, I couldn't learn about the work that was done in an Indian law firm because this is US and in India it's very different. Like some of these instruments were banned by RBI. You couldn't issue naked. They're called naked credit default swaps. Okay, a lot of derivatives were very strictly regulated. As far as those raids are concerned that I just told you about, you don't have corporate raids happening in India. Why? Because in India, shareholding is held by promoters. You look at any listed company, you will find promoter groups holding the largest chunk. In US, the shareholding is fragmented amongst various shareholders, even the promoter group. Like the promoter group will have 4%, 5%, 8% shareholding. In India, even in big listed companies, you will find that promoter group will have like 60, 70%. Okay. So the problem is that you cannot have a hostile takeover. Okay, because the situation is not like that. Okay, now the problem now that means that I figured out a way to be interested in corporate law, but my real problem of learning the Indian corporate law work wasn't solved. If I did not solve it, it would pose a challenge to my getting recruited, right? So that is where I was stuck. What did I do to read further? I discovered a blog in called the New York Times Deal Book. Pretty good, again, only on the US. Okay, covered many deals and a little more analysis on that. So the same romanticized stuff that I read about different books here, I could find live on what's happening in global markets. Usually, I was seeing a lot of cross-border deals. One of them was Cadbury's acquisition of Kraft Foods. At that time, we didn't have Kraft products in India. Kraft with a K, Kraft. But today, you've got their products in India. I used to read Wall Street Journal blog. It was paid, so I didn't take the paid plan, but at least I could read the headlines so I could be aware of the main names. This did more like I could learn about the name of the deals, but transaction structures, complexities, I didn't learn about that because it didn't tell me that. And in the free plan, at least it was only about the news. Indian corporate law blog was something I chanced across, and we were again looking at things from a specific perspective. Which perspective? Corporate governance style, and a very good analysis of recent case laws from on Companies Act, either from High Court or there were SEBI takeover panels decisions, okay, or Securities Appellate Tribunal decisions. So the decision aspect was being covered. Okay, that was useful. But again, I was falling short on one place. Where do I learn the transactions from? I read Business Standard and ET, and every time I would read it every day, I would have 5 or 6 questions about the deals. One time, I read about a purchase of some telecom towers by one brand of another brand's towers. And I was like, very good, 400 crore deal it was there. But I was like, how is this done? I didn't have any answers to it and I didn't know how to figure it out either. And I was very good with the Companies Act. So, I was already by that time taking classes for our juniors for on company law, trying to give them whatever I could from my own practical perspective. But that wouldn't be a lot, right? Compared to college standards, it was super high. But from what is required of an associate, I didn't know where I stood because I did not know the Indian work. I could inspire people about corporate law. I could clear up quite a few of their concepts, right? So they would enjoy interacting with me. But the question of my learning the real work and my also sharing that with our juniors, that wasn't getting fulfilled. So then Business Standard and ET I used to read, and every day I read, there were at least 2, 3 things I couldn't follow. Then something else happened in my life. I got shortlisted for 3 foreign law firms, but couldn't make it past them at the interview stage. So I decided that, okay, let me do something that's even more powerful than being a than being an international lawyer. And I decided to enroll in the CFA program. And I thought that let's try my hand at being an investment banker. That's something I didn't pursue later on. But when I read the books of the CFA program, I could finally start to understand how the maths and the business get tied in together. If you're studying even maths in the CFA program, is going to be connected to what your role is as a fund manager and how you will be studying stocks. So if you're studying averages, like in an Indian textbook, you will have 9 plus 11. What is the average of these two numbers? Here, you will not have that question. Here, the question itself will be that you're a fund manager and you need to find out the average stock price of this stock. And this is the closing stock price on every day that I'm telling you. That is being listed here for the whole week. Find out the average closing price. So while I'm solving the sum, I actually am aware of the situation in which I will be applying the situation. And that made me realize that the way in which we frame questions while teaching is must give people a taste of the real work that is there, which later on led to the foundation of how we created questions in MCQs and business law courses, the practical exercises we make. And now we started covering, we started reverse engineering them from the deals that are reported. But the birth of that idea was when I was looking at the CFA program, right? And what kind of an online course I wanted. So I wanted something that could teach me how the Indian law work is done. I managed to get inspired. I managed to get excited. I could also connect things here and there, but that was all about US. Okay. If you look at mergers and acquisitions books, at that time we had only two kinds of books. Later also a third kind of book came, I'll tell you. We had M&A books which dealt with Companies Act amalgamations. Okay. After a lot of internships and being 1 year associate, I realized that only amalgamations are happening only in two scenarios. Okay. Either where the whole process is within the same corporate group, so getting approvals is damn easy, or there are two very different companies, they may even be listed, but the tax consequences of any acquisition are so high that they are preferring to go through a long drawn court approval process, and both sides and their creditors are agreeable to the deal at a business level. So, and this was less than 10 or 5% of the deals. So if I was working in law school, and that's what I did, right? Like all of you, like everybody would, I just read about the acquisitions, the amalgamations provision in Companies Act and the rules. And I realized that I thought that this is what M&A is, until I actually saw that, the M&A transactions are being accomplished through entirely different ways. Okay. And I even was a part of a due diligence exercise as an intern, but I did not know exactly what was the purpose of it and why we had to review agreements. My first briefing was that identify any problematic clauses, anything that will be an issue. This company is acquiring this company. So you review a contract, review all the lease agreements from the perspective that nothing should harm. Okay. The acquisition. Now I was like, okay, but how do I review it? Like it's a lease agreement. Now what do I do? What's the perspective that I'm going to review it from? What kind of comments, what kind of situations are very normal and acceptable, so I should not comment on them, and what kind of situations are problematic? I have absolutely no idea. Okay. I don't know what are the 3 or 4 kinds of observations that I should watch out for. What are the 3 or 4 kinds of clauses I should look for? Today I know that I must look at anti-assignment clauses. I should look at change of control clauses. I should look at expiry, renewal, all of that. But that time I did not know. And I was like, why don't I have access to this kind of learning? Okay. And that's why exactly I was starting to take classes for the third year batch when I was in fourth year and fifth year. They used to come after their actual college hour, and then we used to have special classes where I could share some of the learnings. And my goal was this, that I want to get them excited about corporate law work, and they used to want to hear from me. Okay. Then yeah, so I wanted an online course where I could get these queries resolved. Somebody could explain that why this is being done like this and not like this. And I even had a lot of the questions in place, but I didn't know where to get the answers because I wanted to speak to someone who was practicing. In fact, even at a law firm, a lot of times, I was seeing a deal done in a certain way, and I was like, this provision allows me to do it in a different way. Why am I not using this? And I'd go to my partner and I'd ask him, okay, this provision says this, so shouldn't we have to do this deal like this? And he'd be like, no, that's nonsense. It's not required to be done like that. And I was like, okay, but why not? Because this is what the law says. I didn't get some answers to that. Okay. And because the deals had to be completed, the work had to be completed, everything was in a hurry. We didn't have time for legal learning. Right. So I had to go on. But I realized that these things need to be answered. How the hell am I going to be partner level one day when I don't get answers to these questions? Right. And I really remembered also some of our knowledge management sessions when I was interning at AZB over there. But that would happen only on weekly, once in a week, in 2 weeks knowledge management sessions, where there would be a debate on how a particular amendment is going to affect a deal. So I realized that the kind of work that's needed is that kind of debate on, and access to a senior or a mentor who can guide us, and a separate thing, a separate wing that will actually give us a sense of how to get excited about this. So learning the work, accessing the senior, having debates on what the new developments are, all of this was important, and I was finding reading the books that were there in the market to be very insufficient. The books that were there in the market later on, one came on the SEBI takeover code, but that was again not on the transactional aspect alone. It was on SEBI, Securities Appellate Tribunal, and Supreme Court's interpretation on the takeover code. Okay, so I could be great at that, but again, I could be horrible at deals. I could be horrible at contract drafting, because this was something I didn't learn. I read a lot of contracts, but I told you I couldn't understand all the SEBI or and all the banking agreements that I was reading. Okay, so now this is the kind of online courses I wanted. Okay, but from 2012 onwards, of course, there's been a huge surge in the kind of online training that's available. So I'm going to share with you now that based on this, now I'm sure that a lot of you are facing similar gap. How many of you are facing a similar gap in your knowledge compared to the real world? Okay, say yes if you are. Okay, write on chat, I'm facing a gap, I'm facing a gap, I'm facing a gap. Okay, this is not about taking up a LawSikho course right now. I'm just going to share how do you leverage an online course to get a job. Okay, right? How I'm facing a gap. Yeah, AJ is facing a gap. There are 28 of you, 26 of you here. So how many of you are facing a gap? Good. Keep sharing. Yeah, how many of you are confused whether there's a gap or not? Right, confused. No gap, no gap, no gap. Right, no gap if you're not facing a gap. Yeah, AJ, you'd stay back for hours trying to clear your doubts. But what if one day the partner left? What if the senior associate said, I'm busy today, buddy? Yeah, then what will happen? Right? Yeah, correct. So what is the important part? I'm now going to share the reasons people take up online courses. Okay. One is that they want accreditation, or they want a certification or branding. And they believe that my being branded by somebody or recognized by somebody means that that somebody else will recognize my value, right? So if you buy gold and some independent certification agency like BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, says that it is certified to be 24 karat gold, it has value in the market, right? Like this is going to be very valuable. This is authentic gold, right? Now, one of the purposes people pursue certificate courses, whether from a university or a private service provider, is for the perceived value. Okay, what is perceived value? This, exactly this, that you're perceived to know the skills, right? The tag, correct? Okay, now that's one reason. However, I can tell you one thing, that I had a personal conversation with somebody who heads recruitments, a senior partner, senior level equity partner who heads recruitment initiative for freshers and senior people. Okay, and I asked him that, sir, there are many people who go and leave big law firms, and some leave for LLM and some leave for other reasons. Now, what is the value of people who leave for an LLM and who then come back to continue with the firm? Do you encourage that? Do you rehire them? So sir said that, he said, if as long as people are going for LLM, I'm okay with that. I'm happy to rehire them. But remember one thing, that the person who stayed here for that year, they will get the seniority and raise. I can happily rehire you if there's a vacancy. There has to be a vacancy, and you will continue from where you left off. So this 1 year that you go to study won't count. Okay, so this is for an LLM with an Ivy League. He said that. Okay, he took the name of Harvard. And so basically, if you are even having Ivy League certification for a degree like an LLM, unless it's actually teaching you practical skills which is relevant for industry, that may not count. Okay, so what I want to say is that perceived value and actual value are very different. Okay, and how do you, now you need a way to identify what the actual value is. So we're going to look at how actual value can be seen. Okay, another way people pursue a course is to bridge their knowledge. Okay, Asa, make sure the screenshot of the word certificate is here. I'm going to show you what is the definition of certificate. This is the definition of certificate. Okay, it's here. Certificate is an official document that states that the information on it is true. Okay, so what does this mean? If you have a certificate from a particular institution, what does it mean? it means that you have pursued and completed a course in that subject from that institution. Okay. But my question is this: what do we make it to mean when we when we think of a certificate course enhancing our CV? Do we use a certificate for only the fact that we pursued a course on this from this institution? Or do we mean to say something else? Yeah, AJ is saying that we mean to say that we have enhanced skills or that we are superior. And what do we mean to say when we say, does industry recognize this certification? Right? A lot of us ask, does industry recognize this? Right? So again, we are saying that does industry recognize, not that you did it with me, but that you possess the skills, right? And that is not even a part of what a certificate means. So the real question here is that whose responsibility is it to say that you've got the relevant skills? Right? The certificate is not going to say that. That's not the job of the certificate provider in a lot of cases. Correct? So just using the certificate won't work because it is just saying that you've pursued a course. Whether you have the skills, whether they match what is needed for the industry is a different question. And you want to decide based on two things. One is perceived value. So by definition, certificate is not saying anything about perceived value. It is our expectation that it will give perceived value. Okay. So perceived value is not there in the meaning of certificate. So we need to stop putting that expectation on a certificate course. Step one. Second thing we need to know, if you have option to show to the recruiter, will you show perceived value or will you show actual value? Choose. Step one, which one is better? Actual value or perceived value? If you had option to show actual value, everybody clear? Actual value is better than perceived value, right? So how do you show actual value? That's the question. Yeah, very good question, AJ. So knowledge is one reason people take up a course, but again, knowledge is also going to be perceived side. So we should identify what is actual and what is perceived. Okay. Knowledge is something that people take a certificate course for, right? But knowledge, why do they take it up for knowledge? Because this will be enabling them to show real value. Where will your real knowledge show? Can show in an interview. Not guaranteed, but can show in an interview. It can also show in internship. Right? Skill gap again can show in an internship. In an interview, you can show off your knowledge, but the fact that you have a skill can only be proven how? By doing the work. If your interview doesn't have a task, you can't show this off, right? So the design of the interview process will not allow you to show the skill gap. You can show the knowledge. Now you want to figure out, some people take it for placements, but placements is something that the course may help you in getting. But how? That's open-ended. So I'm helping all of you identify, how do we leverage the courses, and I'm showing you what are the open ends. Sometimes the open ends are in our expectations. Sometimes open ends are in the promise. There can be various open ends everywhere, right? So skill gap you can't show in interview. Agreed? You have the skills you can't establish by doing the task most of the times. You may do one task, but how can you show that you have the skills for 5-6 kinds of tasks that they do every day? You can't demonstrate it upfront in an interview. In an internship, you can do that. Okay. So what we want to show here then is, what does a recruiter want to see in your CV, and why and where a certificate will fall short. A certificate will fall short if you are looking at it to show perceived value. Agreed? Are you all with me? Is it too complicated? A certificate is going to fall short if you want it to show perceived value. And what does a recruiter want to see? The recruiter wants to see all of that you have the knowledge, you have the skills, and that they don't have to train you. You can hit the ground running, right? Maybe so you will minimize the onboarding time and the training cost. Two things, okay? One is training, because training is expensive for a recruiter. Okay, and onboarding time means getting a hang of the work to be done. If that takes 6 months, that means if you join today, you're going to be fully productive in 6 months' time. If that reduces, a recruiter wants to hire you. Okay, now your CV can only show very broad things. So how do you show to the recruiter that you have the skills? Through your CV. In your interview, you can show some knowledge, right? AJ, if you take less salary, guys, it is barely any use, because I'll tell you, most of the recruiters have a way to get money from clients. Okay, that's not the issue. Taking less salary never helps them get more profit. It helps them get more profit or more revenue if you are contributing to them. Okay, so if you can make their work easier, simpler, shorter, they really don't care about the salary. They'll figure out how to give you a good salary. Maybe they'll give you a quarterly incentive, an annual incentive, or they'll give you faster growth. They'll figure out all that. Okay, so for most of you, I can just trust based on a presumption that you won't leave a good job because you're getting 3,000 less or 5,000 less. Okay, so that's not the issue. So what do they want to see in your CV? They want to see that you have the skills. How are you going to show them? Okay, you're going to show them through a track record. What is a track record? Okay, what is a track record? A track record is that you've done some of the work that the recruiter needs in that practice area. How do you show that? If you have internships in the relevant practice area, previous internships, that's going to count. Okay, that's not evidence of the skills, but it shows that you have some prior work experience, even though as an intern, in that specific area. In the interview, okay, what can you show? You can show your knowledge. You can explain your track record. Okay, but you can walk to an interview without track record, and you can walk to an interview with track record. Which interviewee is going to win? Which interview is going to win? The one with track record. So in your CV, what do you want to show? If you have a track record and you don't put it in your CV, then the recruiter won't know what have you done. So a recruiter wants to know your track record in your CV, right? Track record means what? Is it only internships or what else? What else is a track record other than internships? Track record can be the articles that you wrote in that area. It could be any simulations, any work, any mocks that you did in that area. Any real work. If you drafted freelance contracts, then that. If you helped an entrepreneur with some work, if you helped a startup with some work, they want to know what kind of work you did. Winning moots will be relevant if the moot was with respect to that area. So if you did a high court related moot, a constitutional law moot, and you are actually going to work with a high court or a Supreme Court litigator, and the moot was related to the area of work that the litigator does, then it's going to count. Otherwise, it will not count. Track record has to be relevant, right? Track record for cricket is going to be different from track record for an IT job, and that's going to be different from a hockey job, and that's going to be different from a track record in, let's say, working in a casino or whatever, any other area. Different areas have different track records. Okay. Bushra asks me, how can you write it all in a CV? You can write it all in a CV by eliminating everything unnecessary. If you eliminate everything unnecessary, you will have as much as 1.75 pages to explain your track record, which is going to be sufficient. After that, you use hyperlinks to your articles, to any portfolios that you have. You can put it on Dropbox, make it shareable, and put hyperlinks there. Okay, so it's a way, your CV becomes like a directory, a way for a recruiter to click and find different things that you have done. Okay, so the real question that you want to find out when you are taking up an online course, step one is, are you going to build a track record? Okay, that's the first step. Because why are you going to ask for a track record? Because your recruiter will value an actual value more than perceived value. So it is not about the certificate, but about the track record, because track record stands independently. If you can show the track record, then they don't have to. It's the litmus test. You don't have to worry about any indirect, any certification, any perceived value if you show your track record. So then how can a course help you? A course can help you if you are going to build a track record. Correct? So what are the questions to ask if you are going to build a track record? Is the real work taught? And when it is taught, do you get an opportunity to build a track record? So do you solve some problems whose solutions you can keep to show a recruiter that I've got a track record in this area? These are the things I did. Did I do a mock diligence? Did I do a mock contract? Did I do a mock takeover? Right? How much of the real work is taught? Will I learn a substantial number of skills? The number of skills I can learn in 3 months is more than 1 month. The number of skills I can learn in 1 year is more than 3 months, right? And which is more than 1 month. So if I am going to be an associate, and if people who go work in a law firm take anywhere between 7-8 months, it took me 7 months to get a hang of things. If they take anything between 7 months to 2 years to get a hang of their own practice area in the firm where they have maximum exposure to the real work, then you can imagine that learning the work really fast, maybe in 1 month, may be a little unrealistic to expect, right? Because I know a lot of you who say that, okay, can I learn everything now, tomorrow, get it next month? And often when I speak to you on calls, I say, yes, it is possible. This is what you have to do. And when I speak to you after 3 months, I realize that you use the first 3 months in just building your mindset to be ready to do that kind of hard work. And then from 3 months to 6 months or 3 months to 10 months, you are actually starting to do the real work. I know this because several of you have taken extensions in the course, and we are happy to grant it. That's fine as long as you perform the work. But I know that, when the standard of performance gets higher, the intensity gets higher, then that's when you need more time. You need to prepare for it. So what you need to identify is, will I learn a substantial amount of the work? How will you learn a substantial amount of work? Somebody needs to teach, somebody needs to correct, and somebody needs to be there to guide you, right? A machine cannot alone do that. Technology can simplify the process, but right now machines are not good enough to teach human beings, right? At least in the area of law. You have to understand. So automated MCQ tests alone won't work. So you want to understand, will I learn a substantial amount of skills? Will I have somebody to reach out to? What is the faculty like? Have they actually done this kind of work earlier? Those people who teach us, have they done this earlier? Are there people who are working on creating cutting edge uh, cutting edge problems on emerging aspects of this practice area? Those things you want to ask yourself. What kind of support will be available to me to clear doubts or for personal guidance if I am stuck? There could be guidance around the specific course I'm doing, or there could be guidance around the kind of placement opportunities I should pursue. What is my area of interest? Where to first start building my career in? Those questions can arise for me. Should I rely on the certification like the tag, or is there an opportunity to build an independent track record? Is there a trial period? What are the conditions for claiming a refund if it does not work out for me? Right? Like at LawSikho, our refund policy says that you can invest in the course, study it for 1 month, and in 1 month you must attend all the classes live and perform all the exercises and submit them on time. After that, if you don't like the course, between 31 to 45 days, you can claim a refund. Okay. So people who follow this, if they claim a refund, there have been like 3 refund requests last year. So people who follow the requirement and they don't benefit from the course, they can claim a refund. It can happen, right? It's not always a fit for everybody. But what you want to understand it is that this trial period aspect gives you that safety net that if it doesn't work for me, I can opt out, provided what are the conditions for it that you have to see. Okay. What do other students say about it? Are there success stories? Did people actually get a job or an internship in an area where I want to get an internship? Did they get to work with people I want to work with? Because if that's the case, then this can work out for me, right? Then there are questions about cost. So what happens is that we want to understand, for some of us now, we deal with money in absolute terms. Like 30,000 is a huge sum of money. Definitely it is. 50,000 is a huge sum of money. Definitely it is hard for a student to pay, right? But we also want to understand that how do you measure cost of anything? You measure cost of anything with respect to the return on the investment. Okay, what is the return on investment? I frequently say how to calculate this. If you are investing in the stock market, maximum return people get investing in the stock market is 17 to 18%. 5 to 7% is on FDs. All forms of debt and bonds is in the middle. Okay. That means now if you have, let's say you save your parents 30,000 or 1 lakh, how much will you save for them in 1 year? How much will you save for them in 5 years? You're already paying whatever you're paying for your college. That's 1 lakh, 5 lakh, 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, varies based on university. If it's a government college, maybe you'll pay 20K to 50K per year. If it's a private university, you may pay 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs per year. Okay, that's already 14, 15 lakhs, but forget about it. If you save 1 lakh additional, okay, I'm just going to give you a hypothetical number. Even imagine it to be 1 lakh. You save 1 lakh. Okay, 6% or 10% per year is going to be 50,000. So you're going to save basically 1,50,000 for your parents. Okay, now imagine the cost of living without having a job after you graduate. Okay, imagine the guilt of not having a job when you graduate, while your peers are getting it, and imagine the real living cost, which is going to be around 15 to 20K per month. Okay, so now the money that you saved is going to go backward. You saved around 1,50,000, but now you are going to be incurring 15 to 20,000 every month until you get a job, right? If you get a job that pays you less than your survival cost, if you get a job where you have to live independently but it pays you a little less than your survival cost, still you're in negative. So it is taking away from the 1.5 lakh you saved. What if you got a job that's going to be giving you 25, 30, 35K, 40K, 50K? Okay. You're going to recover not only the amount that you spent, say 1 lakh, but you're also going to get enough to live your life, and you'll get a multiple times return, right? If you get a 30,000 job, and if you even spend 1 lakh, usually you'll be spending anywhere between, like, if with us, it's like 15,000 to 50,000 or 1 lakh. Okay. But if you get a 50,000 job or a 40,000 job or a 30,000 job, that's 3.5 lakhs in 1 year that you earn. Now, 3.5 lakhs on an investment of even 1 lakh is 350% return. Okay. Now, what you want to do is not, I'm not saying decide to spend money based on that. I'm saying that value it. That if I have enough trial period, if things work out for me, I have trial period to try it out also. Then is 350% possible return worthwhile? If I'm spending 30,000 and getting a 30,000 ka job, then it is 1,000% return. Okay, so you have to understand this, that if this equation works, because otherwise, if it doesn't work, then of course you have a trial period, you can see the refund policy, all of that. But if this ratio works, then is it going to be worth it? That's something that one must always calculate. Okay, and I am saying this in general for every course. Okay, you spend 3,000 or 5,000 rupees also in any course, you must understand that am I going to get a return that's worth my while? A lot of us are okay with spending 3,000 or 5,000 without getting any return, any measurable return, or without getting a substantial return. And a lot of us are okay with, if it's a great cost, we'll spend 3,000 or 5,000, which is great. Okay, so I am not in any way saying that, questioning any courses, but I'm saying for yourself, what you want to know is that if I spend 3,000 or 5,000, learn something great. But I also want to take responsibility that is it leading me all the way to the home run, which is my placement, right? Internship, and then placement. Okay. Spending 30,000 and getting 3,60,000 back is 1,200% return, sir. AJ, please check. It's 1 month ka salary, to annualize to hoga na return. In all the FDs, they don't give you 15% in 1 month, they give you in 1 year. So you get, if you spend 30,000 and in 1 year you get 15%, you will get 4,500. Okay. If you're getting 3,60,000, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay. Then another question one must look at. Okay. And this I'm saying in the interest of any course you're considering ever. Okay. Is the real question. Sometimes, after this calculation also, it's very difficult to decide. Okay. So the question is this, you might be dealing with three things. Is the question about the value of money? Okay. That you have never found yourself paying that kind of money. Like, I've never spent 1 lakh on a laptop. And yet, I know that when I buy a 1 lakh rupee MacBook, it's going to increase my productivity a lot or something like that. Okay. So is it just that, that I've never spent it, it's a big break, mental break that's going to be there? Or is it about, this other person is making all these claims, but do I really trust them? Okay. So it could be about trust in the third party. It could be trust in yourself, that they are making all these claims, but I don't think whatever happens, I don't think I'm going to get a great job. It's going to be very hard for me anyway. So there could be a trust gap in yourself. Or there could be just this, that you can't deal with the amount of money, the quantum, the number, it just dazzles you. Okay, those three areas could be there, and I'm saying that use it for yourself, and this will happen for you in other aspects also. It's not about a course, it's about how do you look at things in your life that you value. Like if you want to, even let's say you want to buy something in college for your work, and then you will again see, okay, should I buy the expensive one because of the money? Is the other product going to work? Am I going to be able to use it to its full value? These are the three questions that you all will really deal with. How many of you deal with these questions every day? And it's not with respect to courses alone, but everything else also, right? So how many of you deal with this every day? You can share that. Then some quick tips, and then an access to how to start earning money. Okay, this is a very important area of work for us personally, because finance can legitimately be an issue. Even if the money is worth it, there are ways to create it. You can ask parents, you can explain to them how you're going to be achieving certain results, but from time to time money is a real issue. Even you may find that you do not have that kind of money to get something that you really want, even though it may be worth it. There it's a reality issue. So how do you deal with that? So there are a few things we are exploring, and we will be covering this in a lot more detail. Now if you are want to make money, let's say you're in first second year, you don't have any legal skills at the moment, maybe because you've not done law related study at that, because your college didn't teach you, whatever it could be. Okay, so there are two ways to earn money. One is that you're doing work which is non-legal, and another is that is legal work. If you're doing non-legal work, there are various kinds of content writing opportunities on Upwork, okay, and other freelancing websites which one can pursue. And these kind of writing opportunities can enable you to earn, as much as 20-30,000 in a month just by doing a lot of this writing work. Okay, which will help you generate enough money to invest in yourself to learn legal skills as well. A lot of students give tuitions for class 12 students, or sometimes for CLAT students. Okay, you take classes for CLAT coaching where you earn per class. So these are some of the ways to make money through not using legal skills. Okay, another way, Fiverr is there. Yes, another way that is there. Yeah, Samriddhi, you have, I think, earned some money from freelance content writing. You can share with everybody what you did and how you earn money and how they can do it. Feel free to share that on chat. Paid internships today, this is becoming possible if you are interning with lawyers and if you're interning with LawSikho in certain teams. If you're interning with LawSikho in certain teams, first month internship is unpaid, but from the second month, if you're confirmed for extension, then second month onwards there's a 5,000 rupees stipend. If LawSikho's placement team has helped you get an internship, the recruiters also communicated this, that if your performance is good and if you are continued, then you may be paid a 5,000 rupees stipend, and if it is not good, then your engagement may be discontinued. But this creates another kind of opportunity that you can do a paid legal internship. The benefit of this over non-legal internships is that here you're taking care of not just your money aspect, but also getting some kind of work experience. This will help you in building your track record for your CV. Second type of internship is with startups. If you are interning, again, you can use two skills. Okay, one is legal skills, and they will value if you can be a part of their general meetings and help them with some content writing, help them with planning with their marketing team, or maybe help them with sales calls. That's great. Lawyers learning sales is going to be really important. You can help them with sales calls and things like that. So that is the other side of doing paid internship. So you will learn legal plus business skills, and that will also be very helpful in the long term. You can use this for your track record. Another way to do paid internships is to intern for foreign lawyers. On Upwork, you will find a lot of foreign lawyers listing work, or foreign firms listing work, or sometimes clients directly listing contract related work, where the work involves doing certain research and performing some tasks on US corporate law, US IP law, or IP or corporate law of another jurisdiction. Okay, and some of our students have started doing this work. So that kind of paid internship is also very helpful, because you can take benefit of arbitrage. Arbitrage means that is benefiting from the currency value of higher currency value of US dollar. So if you're paid less in US dollar, in Indian rupee, it's a high amount. Okay, so that work with equal will flow to India more than it will go to US. Then legal freelance work in India and abroad is possible if you have. So what you were doing as interns, now if you have graduated, you can do it independently as a lawyer. You can pick it up from Indian clients, or you can do it as a paralegal to US based lawyers and law firms, right? Now, how can you figure out more on how to earn money? There's a session which Ramanuj is also hosting. I may co-host it. I may be there for some part of it or the whole of it. Okay, which is on how can I get freelance work as a law student and earn at least 10,000 rupees per month. Okay, so we are looking at, we are looking at eliminating any financial limitations for people, so that it is possible for us to learn more, to earn what at whatever stage we are. Not necessary to graduate with a law firm job. We should be able to earn in first year of law school, second year of law school. How do we do that, right? That is the goal, so that money is not a bar. Okay, so step one is money is not a bar, step two is dream careers are not a bar, right? So we want all of that to be available. So I'm sharing the link. I'm inviting all of you to be there from 6 to 9 p.m. for a 3-hour session with Ramanuj and me on how to get freelance work as a law student and earn at least 10,000 per month. For how many of you 10,000 per month as a law student is a good number? What are the dreams that you can fulfill if you earn 10,000? Yes, Samriddhi, I got your comment. Thank you. Yeah, Shrishti, what can you do with 10,000 per month? How will it enable you to lead a better life as a law student? Hari Prasad Ravuru, yeah, would you like to write on chat? You can invest it in stocks. Okay. 10,000 per month, you can invest it in stocks. Yes, true. If you start saving early, makes sense. What else can you do with it? For whom does this matter? So I'm inviting all of you. Go ahead and register. It's a free 3-hour webinar. We'll discuss different ideas to make money. Right? Shrishti, you can pursue courses by saving 3 to 4 months. Yes. Correct, AJ. Who else? For others, it's not important. There are 22 available. You will take the course seriously as you have earned the money. Okay. But what else can you do? You won't have to keep paying all the money to the course. You will save some money. So what else can you do with this apart from taking up any course? Yeah, shopping needs, AJ. What else? So the link is there on chat. I want you to go and register for this. And as you register, it's free, right? So as you register, just you click, put your name details here. And once you register, tell me here that you have registered. I'm waiting for a couple of minutes. And tell me what you can do with the money. If you could get 10,000, 15,000, yeah, Samriddhi, you can travel. If you earn 10,000 per month, in 1 year, you will have 1,20,000. If you spend even 40, 50,000 on a course, you'll still have 70,000 more. Okay. And any trip in India you can take with a 30 to 40,000 budget, it's possible. Right? AJ, yes, superb ideas. What else can you do? What is the real thing you can do? A lot of you want to buy things, no? You want to buy your iPhones, you want to buy watches, you want to buy shoes. By the way, the first thing I bought, so once I earned money in, I didn't need to, but like I was doing some CLAT coaching work, teaching work in third year. So the money I earned there, I used it I invested it. And after 2 months of internship, basically third month, I was having a holiday. So I enrolled in a German class and a French class. And I used to do it back to back, like morning German and evening French. Why did I do it? Because for me, I just wanted to study the connection between the two languages and learn a new language. So it was good fun. People would have thought it's difficult, but I could actually see the commonalities and learn the languages faster. Right? I did a course that time in Alliance Francaise. And then the second time I earned money was in college, helping a friend. Ramanuj and I were helping a friend raise investment. And I was completely fancying watches at that time. And so I didn't need the money for anything else, but I really wanted to buy a watch. So I bought a Tissot at that time. Okay. And I was really excited. Like I made 20K, of which 13K I spent in a Tissot. Okay. So Of course, now if I earn any money, I'm not going to spend like 70% of it or 80% on a watch. But point is that it's not a tissue, it's a watch. I'm typing the name, okay? Yeah, correct. Yeah. Okay, so how many of you have registered? You can gift your parents, Srishti. True. Okay. Yeah, AJ, you're correct. German and French don't have much in common because German has a different root. So, yeah. So, I'm going to ask you all then, does this help you in identifying what a recruiter is looking for when they see your application? And therefore, do you have some informed idea about how to plan your career path when you select courses, what you look at? Yeah, how many of you can somebody share that how this is useful for you? Does this enable you to choose more wisely, to choose in a better way? Quickly tell me, and then we'll wrap up. It's a Saturday evening. If you all have plans, then you can continue with those. So tell me, and then you can head. We will close the session then. I'm going to stop broadcasting, but I'm going to take your feedback right now. Right? So waiting for your feedback. Register on the link. See you all on